5 Live Formula One.
Welcome to the Chequered Flag podcast. I'm Steve Crossman. We are here in Abu Dhabi, sitting under a great cream canopy, surrounded by net curtains with the music in the background. It's very much beach club vibes. The Formula One drivers will be on the beach after this weekend. Between now and then, drama. Hopefully loads of it. Lando Norris one podium away from his first world title. He'll start Sunday's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix from second. His closest rival Max Verstappen behind in the standings, ahead on the grid. He's on pole. Oscar Piastri is third. By now you know the permutations, but if you don't, quick reminder, Max really needs to win. If he does, Lando needs to be fourth for Verstappen to be champion. If Oscar wins the race, he'll only get the title if Lando is sixth or lower. You'll hear from all of them very shortly. You'll hear from Damon Hill as well. Rosanna Tennant is here with us. Hello.
Hello, good evening. This is a wonderful spot to sit and chat over what I think was quite an exciting qualifying session this evening and sets us up very nicely for the Grand Prix, the season finale.
I was about to say there are a lot of potential banana skins, but there are actually quite a lot of actual banana skins. And you a moment ago very nearly got hit in the eye.
I was a little peckish, shall we say, after spending the entirety of qualifying in the media pen. So I needed a little pep up. So I grabbed a banana, popped the banana skin down, avoided it, tried not to slip on it. And yeah, you're right, nearly got it in the face.
F1 journalist Rebecca Clancy's here. Hey, Beck.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me on.
But always a pleasure. And lead commentator Harry Benjamin.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Always.
You feel like you didn't mean that?
No, always.
Okay, good. Thank you both for the Beach Club link and the canopy. Just setting the scene here.
I wouldn't have called it cream. Might have said white.
Oh, well, off-white? Can we meet in the middle?
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
Thank you. There won't be any negotiations tomorrow, though. How do you feel after that?
It's perfectly set up, isn't it? We couldn't have asked for more. The title protagonists are the three who will be starting at the front of the race. I think for Norris going in with a 12-point lead, all of the pressure is on him. He had to be on the front row. He was disappointed that he's not on pole. Of course he is, but he's on the front row, and I think that's all that matters. 11 of the last 12 races here have been won from the front row. He just needs to be on the podium. It is set up for an absolute cracker.
See, here's the thing, Harry. It could be amazing, this race. It could also be predictable.
Let's hope it's the former, not
Let's build
the
up the
latter
commentary.
on that front. Look, I think, as Beck said, it is set up really nicely. You've got so much at risk here from the very first corner. What's Max Verstappen going to do down into turn one? Is he going to run off into the distance? No, I don't think so. Is he going to keep everyone bunched up behind him? What's Lando Norris going to do? Is he going to get a good start? Does he want to go side by side with Max Verstappen into turn one, or does he have to settle behind? Because at the end of the day, it's simple enough for him. He's just got to finish in the top three and the crown is his. Oscar Piastri, nothing to lose, sits behind them, can kind of afford to see how it plays out after the first laps and then make his mark. There's a lot at stake, and we've got some midfield runners as well, and some outside teams like Mercedes who could throw a spanner in the works. They're quick. Do they get involved in the fight somehow as well?
Right, just before the four of us get stuck in then, let's hear from Damon Hill. So Damon will be alongside Harry for commentary. 1 p.m, the race gets underway. It's live on 5 Live. We're on air from noon, though. From here, we'll be in the paddock. We'll be on the grid as well. We'll speak to the team principals. We'll speak to the drivers. You will get everything with us. So here is Damon speaking to Harry, looking back on qualifying and what's to come.
Damon, you know what it's like fighting for a world championship when it goes right down to the wire, the good side and the bad side of it. Max Verstappen on pole for 2 laps that were good enough for pole. I mean, it's mighty, and that gives him a lot of confidence, doesn't it, for Sunday?
Yeah, he has absolutely turned up the wick, and he has put all the doubts out of the window. I mean, he knows that he has to do this. He has to dominate this race meeting. He cannot control what's going on behind him. But we were chatting before we just started doing the podcast here, Harry, weren't we? And we were thinking, well, hang on a minute. We've got Norris second and Oscar is third. And we know that the permutations is that basically Lando has to be out of the top 3, and then it's down to a race between Piastri and Verstappen. Now, we've got a hell of a race coming up, haven't we?
It's a 177-metre run down to turn one. Pole position is on the right-hand side. Norris just needs a nice simple start, doesn't he? A simple race, because Max Verstappen, even if he's got the advantage, he wants to win the race, but now he's got one hand on the trophy. I know he's kind of been playing it down, hasn't he, this 5-time world champion? Oh, if I get it, then great, but I've got 4 others already. He absolutely wants a 5th world title. And Max Verstappen is relentless, and he will do anything to make sure he has the best possible chance of achieving that.
And we have seen how he can fight like a tiger in 2021 here at this circuit with Lewis Hamilton. And if I were Lando Norris, I would be thinking twice about trying to overtake Max Verstappen. If he's second, if he gets a great start and he gets cleanly ahead of him, then fine, go for the lead. But I mean, if it's anything like half-baked, you know, you're going to be taking a huge risk.
Max Verstappen obviously got a tow from Yuki Tsunoda, which helped him out. But both of his laps were good enough for pole, right? But I'm just wondering, I know we've talked about it to death, this fairness first philosophy between the two McLaren drivers. But was there not maybe an option of one giving a tow to one and then the other returning the favour just to keep Verstappen at bay?
Honestly, it's too much can go wrong with that. You can't do that when you've got 2 guys in contention for the championship as well. You know, it's too complicated. It's very difficult to organise anyway. But Yuki is quite happy to sacrifice his laps for the team. They don't have that option with McLaren, and both guys did incredibly well to perform as well as they did, and Lando particularly to outqualify Oscar, just to make the point that he's even a very slender margin, but he's still quicker in the final run, which we've seen him fail at before. So he did a brilliant job of holding his nerve and delivering.
So how does Lando then, with a 12-point advantage, and as you say, all he's got to do is finish on the podium and he's champion, how does he go to bed tonight? How does he treat tomorrow morning before he gets in the car and lines up second for the final race of the year?
Do you know, I think, Harry, this is the bit that's more nerve-wracking, I would say. I would think now they know where they're going to start the race from, there's a lot of anxiety that's been put to bed, not to make a pun, but I mean literally they know what they've got to do. They're on the front row. What they'll talk about is possible scenarios. They should be talking about and thinking about possible scenarios. I mean, Max obviously is going to sleep like a baby. He's got no care, not a care in the world. He might even go out to a party or something tonight. I don't know. I mean, the guy he's got nothing to lose. He's delivered 100 and whatever it is percent he needs to deliver up till now, and he's we know what sort of character is and fighter he is on track tomorrow. Oscar, I think, is a little bit detuned.
I picked up on that just in the Parc Fermé bit after qualifying. Just seeing Oscar Piastri on the radio sounds a bit resigned, I think, but also that can be forgiven for his cool, calm and sort of collectedness, right? But also he is the outside bet, but he was really chummy and he was laughing with Zach Brown, who came over. Then we saw Zach go over to Lando, who just looked a little bit tighter.
Yeah, I think he does that. I think he kind of doesn't want to show any unnecessary emotion. There's no point getting excited now. That's just part of the job done, and he's done the best job he could possibly do. I think they knew that. You remember that they had a new power unit put in Red Bull in Brazil. I think that they are pulling out a lot of stops that McLaren know they cannot compete against now. So it's too late for that. So Max getting pole, I think Lando thinks he's done the best he possibly could have done under the circumstances. He's on the front row. He just needs to make a good start and he needs to keep out of trouble in turn 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's turn 5, the hairpin as well. You know, there's loads of jeopardy on the first lap.
So a final word then just on Oscar Piastri, who starts behind them in third of the championship. I mean, realistically, he's got to win the race to even stand a chance. But is there an advantage to be had from starting behind Verstappen and Norris and just sitting and watching what happens on that first lap?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. You always dream of the absolutely supersonic start, you know, and you come sailing past everyone. But they're all so finely tuned now that it's very difficult to get a start that is that good anymore. But we'll see, you know, if there is any funny business with the two in front, then Oscar could see an opportunity there.
Opportunities galore. I lie. I'm going to chuck one final thing at you, Damon. I know you've got to run off, but it was a really poor day again for Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. He was knocked out in Q1 for the 3rd consecutive time. It really sort of compounds a pretty miserable year for him, doesn't it, at Ferrari?
It really does. And I think that he would be upset and slightly worried about how he didn't deliver in order to get through into the second, at least Q2. He had the car that he thought, but you saw what Charles Leclerc had to do in a Ferrari just to get it, to drag it up there. But then, of course, that's what you're expecting you're going to get with Lewis Hamilton as well. So he's not able to do it yet, or maybe that's the question: is whether he's lost the edge to be as quick as you need to be.
Well, certainly 2026 on the horizon for Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. That can't come quick enough. But for our top three on pole position, Max Verstappen with Lando Norris in second, Oscar Piastri is third. Who's winning the race? Who's taking the title, Damon?
Max is going to win the race.
Who's winning the title?
I think Lando's going to win the title.
Okay, all right then. Well, look, we're going to let you run. I'll see you for the race commentary on Sunday. That'll be on 5 Live, so I'll see you then, Damon.
Damon Hill with Harry Benjamin. So we've got all of the top three still to come. We'll get to Max first shortly. Before we do, in terms of Rosanna, the laps that got him there, at one point it looked like a handy toe from Yuki Tsunoda might be the lap that put him on pole. In the end, as he so often does, he just did it on his own.
Yeah, he still needed Yuki Tsunoda a little bit, but the toe didn't really work the second time around. But as you say, Max Verstappen was able to do what he does best and even improved on that final lap. He looked imperious. I think Yuki Tsunoda had to play the team game. But yeah, he didn't need him ultimately at the very end.
I think Max must have been hiding this pace throughout the weekend, right? Because, I mean, we know he's quick, but he was constantly complaining. It was another classic, isn't it? Friday of complaints, bouncing, jumping up and down, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, he's, a couple of tenths clear of the McLarens who, they didn't have the pace to match that. Neither one could do. So it's another flawless Saturday from Max Verstappen. And I know, Beck, that in commentary on practice, you were kind of predicting this, weren't you?
Well, actually, as I say, the more Verstappen complains on a Friday, the more convincing he is on a Sunday and wins it by a larger margin. It's just how he is. He is a total perfectionist. And today we saw that both laps that he did in Q3 were good enough for pole. He is absolutely bouncing off the walls. He is so happy. He is loving this weekend. He has finally come out and said how great this championship will be if he gets it, and we're going to hear from him. But he's having the most amount of fun out of those three that are going for this title fight tomorrow.
All right, well, let's hear from Max Verstappen then, shall we? I had the chance to speak to him after qualifying, and it seems like he is revelling in the role he's got this weekend. Max, you've spent so much of the last few years being people's overwhelming favourite, and people would say not is Max going to win, but how much will Max win by? I just wonder whether there is part of you that's actually enjoying being the underdog in this situation and being the disruptor that you are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it for sure. I mean, in general, I'm just very happy with how we turned our season around, because we had some really tough races in the first half of the year, and it was not really looking like anything great was going to happen in the second half. And I think the way the team has come back, that is something that we can be very proud of anyway. And of course, now to be in that battle is of course a great bonus. I know that even if tomorrow goes perfect, I would need to rely on a little bit of luck still, but that's fine. I mean, even if, let's say, you come out of tomorrow not winning, I think we can be very proud of that second half.
We've got Damon Hill, part of our BBC team, and everyone's always looking for new ways to describe you. He said you're somewhere between the Terminator and the shark from Jaws. I just wonder if the way you view yourself now is as this winning machine, as someone who can, in the position that you are in now, control things from the front.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, like I said, I want to win tomorrow, but I also know that that's not enough, even if I win. So I just hope on some Abu Dhabi magic that happens behind me. So let's see what we get. I just hope that it's going to be an interesting and fun race.
Nice one. Thanks, Max. That's Max Verstappen. We've got Beck Clancy, Rosanna Tennant, Harry Benjamin, all with us on the Chequered Flag podcast. Abu Dhabi magic then, Rosanna. I mean, he has to create it, doesn't he? And he has to create it through control.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be happening behind him, but he could create that magic, as you say. He needs to control this race. He doesn't want to canter off into the distance. Other drivers, George Russell was talking about it after qualifying as well. He said it would be foolish of him to just race to the checkered flag. He needs to back up the pack. He needs to put the pressure on Lando Norris. It means that his teammate, Oscar Piastri, will be breathing down his neck. That gives McLaren a headache. That brings George Russell into it. So it's going to be a really interesting management, I think, that Max Verstappen is going to have to control when it comes to the start, but also then the first part of the race and the different stints and how he plays his strategy. And of course, his teammate might play into that as well.
Yeah, that's going to be the really interesting thing. On paper, this is a one-stop strategy. There was talk after some higher than expected deg that maybe it could tip over into a two-stop. But if Verstappen is in management mode at the front, then that should keep everybody safely within a one-stop. But then, you've got safety car that could come into it. But he has got to think tactically here, because it's all well and good backing everyone up and maybe forcing Norris into a mistake and as a result but limiting their strategy options. But he then needs to somehow find a gap that he can come into the pit lane and find himself having a nice easy stop and fed back out, not losing loads of time behind traffic either. So could Tsunoda, who starts in 10th, maybe be brought into play somewhere along the line? I don't know, but we've seen McLaren with slow pit stops. Formula One is a race that isn't only happening on track, it's happening in the pit lane as well. So it can be won and lost there too.
And we're talking about the driver's title, but there is so much to play for in the constructors. Only first place McLaren and last place Alpine has been confirmed. So you've got George Russell in 4th. He wants to secure 2nd for Mercedes in the championship fight. So if Max Verstappen is there backing up the 2 McLaren drivers, you can absolutely bet your bottom dollar that Russell will be there to have a sniff if he can get himself onto the podium. And all the way back through every single team in the middle, we are talking about tens of millions of dollars in prize money that is up for grabs tomorrow. Everybody is going to be trying to push forward. So if Max Verstappen is there saying, please do me a favour and take my rivals out of this or get yourself higher up, then that's absolutely what is going to happen. It is going to be so difficult to manage this race.
Could we also see another Fernando Alonso traffic jam as well? Because he starts in 6th spot, and we know he is an absolute master at keeping everybody behind him, running his own race. Because Aston Martin, as you well point out, are embroiled in a big fight in the midfield, and he starts right in front of a Sauber. They're in that fight, right in front of a Haas as well. So that midfield fight, actually, although we are naturally all focused on the top 3, could have a real impact as to how this race unfolds and as a result the title.
And of course, George Russell, he's trying to get P2 for Mercedes, and that's up against Red Bull. So it's a really finely balanced sort of situation in a way. If Max is backing up the McLarens, then the Mercedes could benefit. Could that then jeopardise P2 in the standings? Of course, Max doesn't really, I would imagine, care about the constructors as much as the drivers, but we'll wait and see.
It was funny, wasn't it? George Russell's radio message during qualifying, he was saying, can you put me out after Verstappen, please? Because I'm pretty sure he's going to give me a tow.
Yeah. What I think is fascinating here is that the situation that Max had with Yuki Tsunoda when he was trying to give him that tow, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist and say that the 2 RB drivers are going to try and help out Max because they can't. Whether or we'll
legally,
see what happens.
Yeah.
They can't
Wink,
legally.
nudge, nudge.
Well, yeah, I mean, there might be a bit of that. But Max has a literal teammate and 2 other people who will definitely want him to succeed. You saw the benefit that could give him, and that is the one thing the 2 McLarens do not have, unless they end up in that one scenario where it counts, where Piastri is running 3rd and Lando's running 4th, and they flip him right at the end. That's the only way in which teamwork works for them.
Yeah, his helpers, Max Verstappen's helpers, are scattered through the top 10, which actually is way more helpful than the McLarens. And of course, as you say, the McLarens are not going to help anybody because they're trying to win the championship against each other as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic, I think, that.
His helpers, I love that. His little
His
Red Bull,
helpers.
the Red Bull minions.
Elves, Christmas.
Yeah, coming up to Christmas, exactly. Yeah.
Right, let's hear next from the World Championship leader then. Here's Lando Norris speaking to Rosanna.
Lando, not quick enough for pole today. Do you feel that you and the car have everything they need to hang on to a podium position tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, to win, tricky because we just weren't fast enough today. They just had a lot more speed in the car. So, I will see what we can do tonight and how we can try and overcome that in the best way possible. But the goal is to try win tomorrow, not just hang on to a podium. So.
If Max is leading out of turn 1 and on that first lap, I imagine he's not going to canter off into the distance to allow you an easy podium. So how do you manage or prepare to manage him backing you up into your teammate and other drivers? And do you sense a certain sense of vulnerability going into the race tomorrow?
No, not at all. I can only control what I can control, So I'll go and sit with my team and prepare in the best way possible. So that's it.
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow.
Lando Norris. See, that's really interesting, Rosanna, because clearly that is what he needs to do. What he needs to do is not be thinking podium is good enough, podium is good enough. He needs to be thinking get the win. They're saying it and they're doing it, right?
Yeah, and also we've got to take a step back. Winning a race or even achieving a podium in Formula One is such hard work. Yes, they've done a huge amount of the work today in qualifying to be right there on the front row, but it still takes 58 laps of ultimate concentration, ultimate racecraft, the right strategy calls, and we've seen McLaren come a cropper, of course, just the last time out in Qatar. So hanging on to a podium is not what he wants to do. And of course he wants to win it. He wants to win it in style. That's such a brilliant way to seal his driver's title, by being on the top step of the podium with the title in his pocket. So it's a really tricky one. You don't want to be overthinking it, I think, when it comes to hanging on, just thinking of which position can I manage. He needs to be all out attack. But I'm a bit nervous for Lando fans out there. If we think back to Vegas, he's lining up on the front row alongside Max Verstappen. He tried that aggressive chop, didn't he, in Vegas off the start? And that was, in his own words after the race, stupid. And last time out in Qatar, he lost a place off the start. And it's just not his strength anymore, whereas he'd sort of got his starts back together, hadn't he, over the course of this season, and suddenly it starts to be undoing right at the wrong time.
I think they've got to keep it as simple as they can tomorrow. I think Lando does just need to remember that all it is a top three, because otherwise I think it'll get complicated in his brain.
Isn't that like trying to get a draw, in like the second leg of a League Cup semi-final?
I think he's got to, because I think that will invite, if he starts thinking bigger pitch than that, he'll start making mistakes.
No.
When have you done your best and done 80%? Like, if you think, I'm just going to do 80%, it's impossible.
He regularly does 75. So.
I disagree with you, because these guys are not wired to accept a podium. They go out every single race, and I know it's a cliche, but they want to win every single race. I think the second that you try and change 16 years of racing, as it is for Lando Norris, to switch his mindset from every single time I go out I want to win to, okay, this time I just need a podium, I think that is actually the most dangerous thing that he can do tomorrow.
But his mindset, as we were talking at the start of the weekend, in the press conferences on Thursday, it's almost like, whatever happens, happens.
You're not buying it though, seriously, Harry.
Well, they flip and flop, because I remember going back to 2010, which is what we've all been talking about, because that's the last time we had three or more drivers in the fight. Fernando Alonso was stuck behind Vitaly Petrov in the Renault, and that's ultimately what cost him. And all throughout that race, he couldn't get past him, and he said on the radio to his engineer, who so happens to now be Andrea Stella, the team principal McLaren, who was really trying to G him up, use the best of his talents. And Alonso was saying on the radio, is this enough? Is Hamilton going to win? Who's going to crash out? Am I okay? Is there a chance Hamilton might win or crash out? He was thinking about the other permutations about how he could take the title.
But that's in race. I'm talking about how you line up on the start, and Rosanna's absolutely right, and I think nerves have slightly come into play. I think he's trying to be too aggressive. I think he's trying almost to change his racecraft in a way that he does. He's not a very aggressive driver off the line. He's not really like that. Max Verstappen is well known for his great defence off the line, not really Lando Norris, let's be honest. And I think he's trying to change his strategy and his style at the moment. I think absolutely in race, yes, 100%, then you start have to have those conversations. But I think unless he does anything other than leave the briefing room on Sunday morning with the rest of his team saying it's win or nothing, I think that's a dangerous game for him.
All right, let's hear from Oscar Piastri next then, shall we? He's gone from slight outsider to big outsider over the course of the last 24 hours. Here he is with Rosanna.
Oscar, that was possibly the most important qualifying session of your life. Did you go into it feeling fully prepared?
I felt like I definitely had some things to work on from practice still. But yeah, my lap at the end of Q1 I was very happy with, and gave me a good baseline to kind of work from through quali, which was nice. I think the laps I did in Q3 were solid. The little tiny margins you have in some corners were still there, but it's the same for everybody. So ultimately, I'm pretty happy.
P3, sorry to sort of hammer home the points, but obviously a deficit in the championship standings. Your team boss saying that they will probably use team orders if they have to. It feels like it's all stacked against you. So how are you trying to still stay positive, and what's giving you the hope that you can take the title tomorrow? Sorry to lay it all out.
No, you're just stating what I already know. I think, and what everybody knows. So I think, obviously to try and win the championship tomorrow, I need things to happen. I can't just simply win the race. Obviously, I want to be in a position to win the race if stuff does happen. So that'll be our best play.
Oscar Piastri. Was that the longest of all time?
He wasn't quite sure, was he, whether
No.
he was prepared or not. I mean, we have to caveat that with he stepped out of FP1 to let Pato O'Ward, the Mexican rookie driver, take his seat. That was all prearranged. That was not to disadvantage Piastri in any way. McLaren are bound to do 2 sessions per driver with rookie drivers over the course of the season. So he sat that out, but he was right there on the pit wall looking and learning and seeing what Norris was doing.
And yawning.
And yawning, yeah. I don't know if that was that really for the cameras, do you think? I'm not sure. A big yawn on the pit wall. Of course, these drivers hate being on the sidelines, and Oscar Piastri's experienced that, of course, having that hiatus between his F2 championship win and moving into F1. And poor lad, he had to go and present with me in that year. So I think he's glad to be back on the F1 grid. But he is in a tricky bind, isn't he, really? I don't think he was prepared because he'd had FP2 and FP3. He was slightly off the pace, I mean, very much off the pace in FP2. FP3, he was there or thereabouts. And we spoke over the weekend, didn't we, in commentary, that he builds over the course of the weekend. And I kind of thought he may be right up there this evening, but it just escaped him. Although I do think he's probably got a sort of comfortable seat off the start to watch it unfold ahead of him with Max and Lando, and perhaps he could navigate his way through, but he's still in a pretty vulnerable spot with other cars charging from behind.
He was quite interesting in the written media section of press conference. He was asked, what happens into turn 1, how are you going to play it, when do team orders kick in, and he just said, I don't know what's expected of me yet.
Ooh.
So it does rather suggest that conversations had been had. And actually my feeling from that press conference was he was quite dejected. Certainly of the 3 of them sat there, it felt like he was the most dejected. And actually the question is, will McLaren say, you can't race into turn 1, which obviously goes against everything they've said all year where they can race fairly. If you can just get through turn 1, then you can do what you like. It's so difficult. It's such a difficult position for them to manage.
But that's like you say, again, it's over-engineering it, it's overthinking it. A driver goes off the line thinking, I need to be as far in front as I can into turn 1 and leading out of turn 1. How do you control, I'm not going to go for that gap? In actual fact, you make it more dangerous for yourself.
Just turn the radio off.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you, Tom
Isn't that how Luke
Stallard.
Skywalker took down the Death Star? Maybe that's the way to do it. Just get the computer off and you're fine.
It's
Max
Max
Verstappen,
Verstappen,
the Death Star.
Yeah, I was exactly. Max Verstappen is the Death Star. I love that. You asked him how he identified. There you go, the Death Star. That's lovely.
There's a thing there as well about the identity thing. For anyone who was listening to the Max Verstappen when I said, Damon Hill's with us, and he kind of described you as somewhere between the shark from Jaws and the Terminator. If you're sort of imagining Max Verstappen sort of smiling and nodding, he was not doing that. He was looking straight through me, dead-eyed, almost making the point. And the thing that occurred to me about that is, and it's relevant to Oscar as much as it is to Lando, the similar thing that's happened is Zach Brown, McLaren CEO, comparing Max Verstappen to like the villain from a horror movie. I do wonder if that has contributed to making Max Verstappen seem almost inhuman in a way that probably doesn't help his rivals. They don't want to see him as being invulnerable, and he almost is made to seem invulnerable by the way we talk about him, which doesn't matter. But if your team boss is saying that, maybe it does.
Quite possibly, but they do like to stir things up a little bit, don't they, in when they're talking to us in the media. But I don't know, I think
that might be stirring the wrong part.
Well, maybe, but I think they trust their drivers because they've managed to instill this ethos with them throughout the year. They're doing something unthinkable with the 2 McLaren drivers and not falling out and not having toxicity between them. Yes, they're not best mates, but actually get on fairly well for 2 drivers going for their first world titles on the cusp of a year where we don't know how the order's going to stack up in 2026. They might not be in the fight. I suspect they will be. But I don't know. I just thought, just picking up on the Piastri thing, I just thought that watching from the commentary box in the Parc Fermé area, just looking at the different demeanours between the 2 McLaren drivers. Piastri was kind of laughing with Zach Brown, whereas Norris looked a lot tighter, didn't really crack a smile. I thought it looked like he was carrying the weight of it a bit more than Piastri, who I felt, maybe we'll look back on it, and I felt it was at the end of Qatar, Piastri realised that he was not going to take this title because of what happened in Qatar, and has been a bit resigned to that ever since.
I think it helps that he's confronted those demons already, Oscar Piastri, doesn't it? But do you know what's quite interesting about the Zach Brown comments this weekend? Whether you call it a U-turn on how they go racing or not, I think they are going to enter the race with the same racing principles and then obviously have to react to what happens. But I love how he said, when challenged as to whether the drivers would do as they were told during the race, because of course once the visors on, well, the visors down, helmets on, you know, and as you say, Beck, radio off, radio on, they are kind of the masters of the destiny of the team and the other driver's title or not title. But he said, we know we think they'll comply with our wishes just as we comply with their wishes. And I thought, you haven't really, though, this year, because we've heard Oscar Piastri twice in Monza and in Singapore ask what they were doing, and he was obviously denied any of those requests. So I thought that was quite interesting. So, you know, is it, you know, Oscar's turn to not grant the wishes? Don't know.
I wonder, Beck, I think Harry's probably right in what he said about Oscar sounding... I mean, he's not like your typical Aussie sportsman, as we heard from our colleagues at Sport Cafe in Australia yesterday. But even by his own standards, he does sound a bit resigned to it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think he's a pragmatist, isn't he? He's 16 points behind his teammate going into a race now where he is third to Norris's ahead. I think he's a realist. I think he knows that the championship has slipped away from him, and Harry's absolutely right. It didn't slip away from him here. It slipped away from him in Qatar. It was actually the team that cost him that win, which is a very brutal, bitter pill to swallow, I can only imagine. And then Vegas, that cost them points as well. It's been so difficult. And actually, we're talking about the drivers and whether or not the radios get turned off or not, and if they'll comply. But if I was Norris or Piastri, my other concern would be the McLaren as a team have had 2 tricky races coming into this weekend. It's actually not just in their hands. You know, Harry is right. They're talking about strategy. What are they going to do? Well, McLaren have got strategy wrong at the last race. So that does niggle at the mind slightly. And for Norris, he just has to start the race, finish the race where he started it, and it's all, you know, hunky-dory, the roses, the fireworks go off, we all go home, we are on a beach. Actually, Steve, they don't lie on a beach. They're back here for testing on Tuesday. What a come down. But
it's going to be a serious Monday.
It's going to be,
they're going to be partying hard.
It's going to be quite the hangover on Monday, I'm sure. Possibly a 2-day hangover, although they're young enough to not have those yet, so luckily them. But they, that's got to be on their mind, hasn't it?
Should we do a bit of any other business before we go?
Is there any other business?
I think I mean, for this weekend, it feels like there's a little bit.
There is.
Let's talk a bit about Lewis Hamilton. He's going to start in 16th, massive groan.
It's just so depressing.
Well, so here's the thing. When we heard him in Q1 early on, he was like, that felt like a good lap. And he'd sort of bashed his car up at the end of free practice 3. So at that point, maybe we were a bit like, oh, okay, you know, he's feeling it. And then out in Q1 yet again. It almost makes it worse that he was feeling better about it.
Yeah, and I said that to him. We heard you on the radio saying exactly that. What happened? Where did it get away from you? And he said, it just wasn't fast enough. And I was like, but come on, you're Lewis Hamilton. Like, what? And he's like, it's just so close out there. But he was so dejected. He was arms folded across his chest in the media pen. He was shaking his head at all the media. He started on the other side of the pen from where I was based. And every single journalist got a shake of the head about a 2-word answer, looking down, mumbling. I could barely hear his answer that he gave me. So it's a really difficult way to sign off from this season. And given the track that we find ourselves on, he's not going to be able to make up that many places. So it's a really sad way to end this first year for him at Ferrari.
He did make it up to 4th from 16th last year, but there were a few other things that came into play there, and he was in a Mercedes, which I would actually say was probably a bit better than the car he's got at the moment. But it's a terrible year for Lewis Hamilton. It's a terrible year for Ferrari, going winless since 2021 by the looks of it. Hamilton going podiumless for the first time in his entire Formula One career. He got his 3rd consecutive Q1 elimination. That hasn't happened since 2009, when that was a pretty rough season for McLaren to begin with. It's just awful, and it must be better in 2026, not only for Lewis Hamilton, but for Charles Leclerc as well, if he is going to recommit to that team for the long term. I know he's got sort of maybe a never-ending contract as Ferrari Golden Boy, but Fred Vasseur, the team principal, he's on limited time as well, because the bosses at Ferrari don't accept this kind of thing. But this is time and time again we're seeing this, and it's a big year next year. They've got to get it right, or else we might well be seeing the very end of Lewis Hamilton as a Formula One driver.
Every so often here in the paddock, you will just see a driver walk past. We've just seen Ollie Behrman actually leaving the circuit away to our left-hand side. I just want to touch on one more British driver before we wrap up. And given we're about to do your final predictions, just to preempt it and warn you, for the 2025 World Champion, the man who Beck's convinced might be the 2026 World Champion, George Russell. You mentioned his kind of playful thing. Go on, sorry.
You're never going to let me forget that, are you?
No. But I will forget it if you're right by the time this time next year. You were saying about how he was kidding around about the toe and everything. I do think it's quite interesting that we shouldn't forget the ego of drivers and actually maybe quite enjoying the fact that even if they don't have a specific thing that they are personally going for, someone somewhere might like to have a little impression on what happens tomorrow.
Yes, but you want it for the right reasons, don't you? I was, down at Haas and I was talking to them, and they obviously Behrman's had a brilliant day talking of the man who's just walked past us, and they were thinking, oh my god! And I was saying, Behrman, great if he's in third, then maybe we'll get the points to go up to seventh. But actually, we don't want Behrman to be getting in the way for the championship fight for the wrong reasons. And then you end up in a conversation about Timo Glock is only really remembered for Brazil 2008.
Is that Glock?
And then
he had some great results for Marussia.
I'll leave that to you, Harry. And then you have Nicholas Latifi, obviously, here 4 years ago, 2021, and that's what they're known for. So if you're going to be a thorn in the side of the championship title fight, let it be for the right reasons.
I mean, all I'll say is, obviously, we spoke about it, George Russell on the radio in qualifying, heavily hinting to Red Bull to give him a bit of a tow because that could be helpful for them. That's a hint for the race as well, isn't it? And George Russell being a strategic option that Max Verstappen and Red Bull should consider.
Yeah, and George Russell was the driver who was telling me about the fact that Max Verstappen would be backing up the pack and managing it from the front, and he wouldn't be going off into the distance. So he's such a clever, thinking driver. And you're right, Beck, I do think he'll be challenging next year if what we're hearing about the engine, the power unit on the dyno really being one of the strongest ones, as we're just actually seeing Sir Lewis Hamilton leaving the paddock with his security detail, cutting a fairly lonely figure, I have to say, hand in his pocket.
Not on a scooter.
Not on a scooter. Yeah, taking his time and
A
actually.
very small entourage, really. Yeah.
Well, if you keep it small, then no one. Yeah, but then if you keep it small, then no one knows. It's like seagulls.
True.
You know where the fish are. If all the seagulls are there, if you just have one, no one thinks there's anything worth fishing for.
Do you reckon he could give us a lift
people
back to
you
the
were
media car park?
No one has approached him. How bizarre.
Yeah.
But do you know what?
I think
He's just been
it's
spotted. I've said it too soon.
I think it's his body language which says, leave me alone, doesn't it?
Yeah, and actually I followed him back in after FP3, which you guys were laughing at. His body language then after his spin, which I think was because he closed the DRS too soon. So it was very, again, uncharacteristic of Lewis Hamilton to make a mistake. His body language there as well, helmet still on, not wanting to talk to anyone until he got back to the safety of the Ferrari hospitality. But it's just a real shame that it's not gone the sort of romantic way I think we all thought it might, with two of the biggest names synonymous with Formula One, Ferrari and Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Completely different look on the face of McLaren CEO Zach Brown, who is literally strutting through the paddock.
He does have a good strut, actually.
This is one of the ridiculous things about sport, isn't it? He's just come down, I think, from the Paddock Club, which is just above us here in the paddock. They still have to do all of their partner advertising sponsored duties, even though they've got this championship on the line, perhaps that difficult team orders situation to play out. And actually, I think what's interesting this weekend with McLaren is Zach Brown is doing all of it. He did the team press conferences, he's doing all of the media, and he's doing all of it to take as much pressure as he possibly can off Andrea Stella to let him get on with the day-to-day running of things. And Zach Brown is out there doing, making sure the checks still get signed at the end of the year. It never stops, this place.
Right, who's going to win this thing, Harry?
Win the race or win the title?
Who cares who wins the race?
Well,
You have to start from there, surely.
I think Max Verstappen's going to win the title.
Do you?
I know I said Lando Norris earlier.
Yeah.
I'm flip-flopping because I don't really know.
You're a glory supporter.
Yeah, well, no, I just think pole is a massive advantage and a great opener for the strategy. So I'm going to change my mind again and go for Verstappen.
Rosanna?
I went with Max Verstappen on our predictions earlier for social media, which went totally against what I predicted in Melbourne at the beginning of the year when I thought Piastri would have it. Obviously, there was a large part of the year where I was feeling pretty smug, but I think Verstappen will win tomorrow, and I think something is going to happen. Maybe the Abu Dhabi magic he was alluding to, and he'll take the title as well. And finally, we got it out of him that it would be his best ever championship if he did do it. So I would like to see that happen, because I think it would be one of the greatest comebacks. And as he said, it's been the turnaround, not the title, that's been impressive this year. But I think we'll all be pretty impressed either way tomorrow.
Beck?
I am going to be the only person, apparently, who sticks with their prediction from the start of the weekend, which is Lando Norris. But I do not think it will be straightforward. I think there is another twist in the tale. Steve, what do you think?
Well, I have changed my mind a couple of times already. I said Max Verstappen on the show. On social media, I said Lando. But that's because I was worried that they might see the social media. So then I was like, who am I more worried about upsetting? I think at one point I said Damon Hill was going to win it.
You panicked.
I did panic.
You bamboozled him.
Gone back in time.
I mean, look, I think the only person who I think Piastri is gone now, really. I have to say, I think it is technically a three-way title fight.
But can you imagine the race we'd have if he actually wins the title tomorrow?
That's
and
one of
then
the
my
great
prediction
things.
would be great.
There's
for
no
March.
bad story for us.
Yeah.
Top
Whatever
two take
happens.
each other out into turn one. Through goes Piastri.
There you go. And the brilliant thing
Could
is,
happen.
I've got through this without giving a prediction.
Yeah, no. Get off the fence.
What time is it now? Okay, Max, ask me in 20 minutes. Who knows?
Okay.
Damon, maybe. I don't know. Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
Always a
you.
pleasure.
I'm so excited for this race.
I know.
I hope it isn't a damn squib now.
It won't be. Listen, please listen. 1 o'clock, full commentary, 5 live. We're on air from noon, though. We'll be here in the paddock. Rosanna and I will be off on the grid. I have an image, Rosanna, that you're basically going to appear with two of the main celebs who I know are here this week, Jason Statham and Idris Elba, one on either arm, walking through the grid for us to interview.
Get them in a headlock for you, Crossy. Just bring you all the guests
Yeah,
in the
I think
grid.
maybe go with the arm first.
Okay, just the arm. Yeah, probably.
Sure,
Not with those two. I don't want to get into any trouble with them.
Damon Hill will be with Harry Benjamin for full commentary. As always, thank you so much for listening. The Chequered Flag podcast is an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.